Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I've got a ball of energy today. I've got someone who has been inspiring me from a distance. Every time I see her stuff, it makes me want to get up and get some shit done. To be honest, I'm like, fuck, I need to step it up a bit. I've had a beautiful partner in here, but I do have Chloe Bromwich here. It will blow you away that she's only 23 years old. She's lived on the Gold Coast for 5 years now. Originally a personal trainer and loved the high energy of working in group fitness. Put so much time and energy and passion into it, but the job never really gave her anything back in return. I'd love to hear about this part of your story. She was 19 and spent $10,000 on her first mentor, which is a huge stretch, I think, for anyone, especially at that age. But paid off massively, started an online business, still has that online coaching business, but no longer works in the business or coaches the business, has a great team that runs it for her, which is amazing. In her spare time, she also works in the space of online business mentorship and a mindset coach, helping women to step into their true authentic power and help them scale and run their online business. This is epic. My life is a dream. I love that last line as well. Chloe, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
This is, we will go anywhere. We can go wherever you want to. So whatever, I guess, pops up for you.
Yeah.
Feel free to lean into it and speak into it. Let's start with your story.
Yeah.
I obviously, short snippet just then, personal trainer. I've come from the fitness industry as well. So yeah, how did that happen? You can start before then as well. But what's the story? What's your story?
I think for me, my energy has always been, like you just said, very, very large and very, very bright. And so for me, pretty much no matter what I was going to do with my life, I was going to do a good job. Yeah. But for me, that's not really enough. I need to enjoy things and I need to love things. So, I graduated high school, got pretty good grades, was like, yep, I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to become a dentist. I'm going to become a dentist because to my family, that sounds like such a good job. And in the end, I was like, why the hell am I trying to become a dentist? I don't want to be one.
How old were you when you even started asking that question, though?
Oh, I want to say 17, probably.
That's really conscious for a young girl. Really
cool. And I've always been, without rubbing myself up, it's, a little bit beyond my years in a sense. For I've always been quite curious. Why do I think the way that I do? So I got to 18, I went on a solo trip to Europe by myself, which is freaking epic. That's so good. After schoolies. And when I was overseas, I was like, I'm not doing that. That's not what I want. And I vividly remember I'd applied for university across Australia. So I was living near Sydney at the time. That's my hometown.
Sydney gal.
And I had applied to do sport and exercise science at unis in Queensland. And then I was in a Prague McDonald's, very, very hungover, and I got a ping, you've been accepted. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So went home. It was home for 6 days and I said to my mum, I'm going to move to Queensland. And so I packed my tiny little blue Suzuki with all my belongings and off to Queensland I went. And it was kind of all just started from there. So I ended up actually doing uni, then going, I don't like uni, dropping out of uni, doing a PT course and was like, this is where my passion lies. But then as everybody knows, the dreaded COVID popped its head and was like, so worked in group fitness, had fun doing that. It was great. Loved it. Loved the impact I made in that space. But then, like I said, COVID hit and I was like, okay, what do I do? I had the last little bit of money that I had left and I was like, I'm going to buy a computer. So that's what I did. It was the last $3,000 I spent on an iMac. And from there, I was like, I'm just going to offer like fitness programs, like really, really short, simple. And I was like, I'll sell 10. If I can sell 10 for $100, that's $1,000. Yeah. I made $10,000.
Wow.
I sold 100 programs at $100. And the funny thing about that is no one will probably ever buy from me again, those people that bought from me at that time, because I had none of the back end systems to hold that many people. And I was like, I can do this. It'll be fine. No way. One person at 100 people at that point in time. I didn't even know what that was like to manage that many people. So made the 10K. It was like, oh shit, you can make money online. Like, whoa, like you can do that. And so for me, that was kind of like my introduction into the online world. And so from there, I actually ended up becoming a fitfluencer, if you will, and did, a lot of brand deals and things like that online. And I kind of got the name, the Instagram's hype girl. So I was on another podcast and that's kind of where that started. So that's kind of how it all evolved, built my fitness business from there. That's still thriving and doing very well. But then once I lent into it, I love business. And have quite a knack for it. Without really needing to try too hard, which is really cool for me. So helping other women do the same is kind of where my passion lies now, which is so cool.
Fucking hell. Really cool. There's so many things that I think when you're on the other side of the bridge, sometimes it's hard to realize that what problems people are going through who are back on the other side. And you've done so many things that, like, for my business journey, I was so slow compared to you. I was like, you did that, you did that, you did that, you did that. I'm like, that took me 6 years. I was like, oh my God. Something that stood out to me is you investing into mentorship and just your consciousness. Were you were you like at 17 to be having the question or the conversation that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life? Like, people don't do that till they're like 40, until they're like 30, until they're late 20s. You're doing it when you're 17. Were you conscious growing up? Is that from mum and dad? Where does the sort of like self-awareness come into it for you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. My parents split when I was really young. So my dad left when I was 4, so I was quite little. And for a lot of people that have split parents, you usually know that pushes you into a sort of independence that you don't really want to have, if that makes sense. You grow up a little bit quicker because you just you deal with adult problems as a kid, whether you want to or not. So off the back end of that though, my mum, which I'm really grateful for, has always treated all of us kids like we were people, not like we were kids. She asked us what we thought about things, and she included us and things like that. So I think having her really view me as a person and not, like a lot of children are like, sit down, be quiet, behave. Where it was always like, yes, of course we were told to behave, but it was also like, well, what do you think? And how do you feel? And where do you want to go? And I think having those questions asked allowed me to have a sense of curiosity. And as you know, being an emotionally intelligent and aware person, you need to have a sense of curiosity for everything that goes on. So I think having that from a very young age just allowed me to question where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do.
What were some of the questions, and I'm asking this for the reason of people listening to this, they were like, fuck, Chloe's kicking ass, she's 23. We'll talk about money soon. I want to chat money with you as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're doing really well. And for people that are watching this, whether younger or older, they're like, okay, well, I'm not thinking like that. I'm just kind of in the zombie mode, the autopilot, go to work, fucking don't love work, come home, watch TV, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. What types of questions or what questions can these people ask themselves to start to have those little light bulb moments, start to be a little bit more aware? What can they ask themselves?
First one, why do I do what I do?
Ooh.
So whether it's that's go to the same pub every Friday night, whether that's go and do the job that you do. And on one hand, I don't think everybody needs to have a job that's their passion. I used to think that. I think sometimes your job can be the monetary vehicle to allow you to live the life that you want. Yeah. But at the same time, I think asking, like, it's just, why do I do the things that I do? Because often the things that we do are a byproduct of our parents or our upbringing, not of the things that we've chosen. And I think also coming from a place of not having guilt or shame for yourself around that.
Can we go into that? We were speaking just before that, before we jumped on. I guess my upbringing, I've come from a family household with my dad, who was very, I guess, controlling and put us kids, especially my sister, in a bit of a box and tried to stop her from expressing herself and tried to mold her in how he wanted her to be, kind of live in his values, be who he wanted her to be. Fuck that relationship. But I see it so often. Like, that's just my personal experience with it, but I see it a lot. I've had it with my partner, her upbringing as well. So I'm sure you work with a lot of women. I'm sure you experience this. So what's your thoughts on that, and what are your solutions to women that have been, not just women, well, women as a whole, but also men that have been pushed into a box, try to be someone that they want, forced to go to uni to do shit that they don't want to do to impress their parents or whatever it may be. What's your thoughts on that, and what advice would you say as well?
It can be so hard to get out of that.
Yeah.
Because, and especially I think, again, I have clients that have experienced it. I think most people to some extent, whether you're the family disappointment or, you're the favorite child or whatever, like usually we've all experienced our parents wanting us to do something that we probably don't want to do. The first thing is often the thing that people don't like to hear. It's like, we need to have a little bit of gratitude for our parents. Which took me a long time to get around, because at first I was like, fuck this, I can be whoever I want, but it's like they usually are only ever trying to do it out of love. Yeah. So looking at it from that perspective first kind of allows us to have a bit of compassion for ourselves and go, how can I come at this decision or this choice from my parents in a place of love? And how can I choose to love myself in the process of not choosing this for myself? Because it's so easy when you've got expectations put on yourself just to go, yeah, cool. That's what I should do. But it's like, but why should you do that? What makes you happy? Who do you actually want to be? Why do you actually want to be those things? What impact do you want to make? I don't even think people make those sorts of, or ask themselves those sorts of questions. And so for me, as much as, yes, I've always been tried to put in the sit down, be quiet, you're too loud, you're too over the top box. And I still am. People on social media still tell me. There was a podcast that I was on recently that the comments in the feed were like, can you tell her to stop talking? Like all these sorts of things.
Why are you listening?
Yeah, but you know what's so funny? They all followed me as well. And I was like, oh, why? And like, so it still happens. Yeah. But what I can say is, it's like, well, I could have done all the quote unquote right things by the people that wanted me to do those things, and I still would have been told to sit down and be quiet and be their version of me. Yeah. But I've chosen to be my version of me, and I've still gotten some form of backlash, but I'm so much happier being my version of me.
Yeah. Wow. So much in that. so much in that. fuck, I don't know. There's so many directions.
There is so many.
I'd like to go probably the next step from that conversation. So say someone right now is listening to this and they're studying or they're doing a job or they're just being someone who they're not because of their parents, because of their partner, because of their... I had a call with a gentleman yesterday and like he's completely changed who he was for his partner to please her and to be a good ex, whatever. And so if anyone listening to this that they've just had a bit of a light bulb, they're like, holy shit, that's me. I'm asking questions. You know what? I love music. I love dancing. I love coaching. I love fitness. I love whatever it may be. But there's fear there. They're like, fuck, I want to do it, but what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if all these people laugh at me? What if I'm a failure? Whatever it is. How have you, because something that stood out to me in your story that you might not even realize, your ability to take action is fucking epic. Like, it's cool. Like, you just take an action. Like, I remember my first live video, this is a funny story. I remember my mentor was like, you got to get on video. You got to start making videos. I was like, fuck me. And I was still at school, year 12. Yeah, and I'm from a football school. So I'm part of a footy team, like the boys, if you're watching this, which they won't be. I just remember I'm like, fuck. I was like anxiety attack, like trying to do it. I went down Burleigh Beach along the Burleigh Esplanade and I was like hyperventilating. I'm like, I'm going to go do this. I walked down onto the beach, like back because there's kind of trees where the beach is. And I was like kind of hiding in the trees. I started filming and then someone walked past, put my phone down, like, fuck, hope they didn't see me. Anyway, it took me like an hour and I filmed a 30-second video. And it was like, hey guys, get outside, chase your dreams and stop watching TV. And I put it off. Anyways, I turned my phone off for 24 hours. I didn't want to see the comments. And next day at school, oh my God, just like, oh, how's your goals going, bro? Blah. And I'm like, anyways, that was the Band-Aid I had to pull off. And it was just, it happened. Yeah. But I want to hear from you because you've done that fucking, looks like seamlessly. Maybe it wasn't. But what would you say to people that have that fear that they're just scared to do it? What would you say?
People come into my world with that all the time. It's like, I have that fire that you have, but it's the fear that stops me every time. For me, I always love to tell people I've actually failed more times than I've succeeded. Yeah. 110%. Like, yes, what's been reflected to me is that I usually make 10 steps into one step. I am certainly a fast action taker, but what people don't realize is I still carry that fear with me. Yeah. Like, it doesn't mean that comments on the internet still don't hurt my feelings, and I'd be absolutely lying to you if I said that they didn't. You know, it doesn't mean that there's not a pit in my stomach of like, what if this doesn't work? What if I fuck it up? Yeah. Oh my God, what's my mum going to say? What if I go bankrupt? Like, whatever. But for me, it's almost like a little bit addicting because once you start, and even like you say, even if it's as small as like takes you an hour to do a 30-second video, you get that feeling of like, oh, I did that. Yeah. And then you're like, I can do it again. So for me, when I talk about self-confidence is your ability to do something and then fail, but you're like, hey, I'm still alive. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I'm all good. So the confidence is the byproduct. So sometimes, as much as, you know, it's hard, it's actually just about taking the step forward, and whether you fail or whether you succeed, you're still one step ahead of everybody else, if that makes sense. Yeah. And not that I really believe in like a hierarchy or believe in a competition, but it's like, you know, people spend their whole life staying stagnant out of fear of change or judgment or whatever. And I just think like, if you already have that pit of like, you know, desire or that fire in your belly, that's already your intuition saying, hey, you need to do this. And I think you can either do it scared or you don't do it at all. And it really gets to be as simple as that.
Is there a daily, I'm trying to think, I'm thinking from the listeners, what excuses would they have? I'm like, what, if someone just heard that, what would come up for their head? Is there a mental, I guess, what do you tell yourself? Like, say, for example, like I was just using a live video as an example. It wasn't a live video, actually. It was just a normal video back then. But say it's to start a podcast, it's to make a video, it's to ask that guy out, it's to leave the relationship. It's the kind of, you're at the edge and you want to take that jump, but is there anything you're telling yourself? Is there anything, do you have a plan? Do you have contingency plans? Like, what allows you to push through that barrier? I want to get like really granular right here.
One of my favorite quotes is like, what if I fall? But darling, what if you fly? Ooh, I don't even know who it's by or where it's from, but I love it because it's all we ever do as humans. And it makes sense. We're hardwired to look for things going wrong. Yeah. So straight away it's like, oh, if I jump off the cliff, I'm going to die. Yeah. But for me, it's like, you know, but if I jump off the cliff and then I learn something, that's fucking epic. And so for me, it's always like, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What if it does succeed? And I don't really love like the whole toxic positivity, because sometimes shit does go wrong. And sometimes you do make mistakes. And sometimes you need to learn, like, and sometimes you need to go, hey, that was actually my fault and I made a bad move. So I think for me, it's almost about radical self-honesty, because I know that even if I take this leap and all shit goes to the fan, I'm actually going to still be okay. And so for me, it's like, will I be okay? Yes. And some like the basic question of like, will I die? No. Okay, cool. I'm going to do it. And sometimes you do need to have a bit of a pep talk. Even like I was saying that those comments that were made of me, you know, recently, I was originally like, they did dig in me a little bit. And I was like, okay, what? And again, it's the curiosity. Why does this dig for me? Okay, what's going on? Why has this come up? Whatever. But from there, I was like, my mission, as it is for you, is so much bigger and greater than what one person or two people or five people have to say towards me. So sometimes it's about looking at the end result. So for me, like you know, we love to create impact and help people. So it's like, okay, well, if I let one person stop me from what I need to do with taking that leap, all the other people that I need to impact in the future, they're not going to be impacted. And I know that sounds a little bit delusional, but that's the fact of the matter. So whether it's like, you know, you want to leave a relationship, okay, if I don't leave the relationship because I'm scared to leave it, but what about my future and the impact of my future and the impact of, you know, my future career and the future kids that I could or couldn't have, or whatever that may look like. And sometimes we do need to jump forward and look at that future vision as much as I'm about living in the present, to be like, well, what am I going to sacrifice? There's no time to sacrifice. You got to keep moving. Life's too short.
I was literally writing vision as you said it. I was like, this is so beautiful. It's so true as well. I was just, as I was waiting for you to get here, I was listening to a Grant Cardone webinar. I sign up for webinars all the time.
I love that.
Just love to learn. It's just like, he just said, like, if you don't have the goal big enough, you're never going to get off your ass. No. You're never going to do it.
And if the goal doesn't scare you, it's not big enough either.
Yeah.
Because we always, everybody, I believe, has like a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And my goal is to teach people how to break through the glass ceiling. Because it's like, well, if you can continue to raise the bar for yourself, like, I actually believe most people's potential is infinite. Yeah. Most people just fail to realize that.
Yeah. Can you go into that? One of my questions was to go through, how do you help people? Like, what is it that you take them through? You just mentioned glass ceilings. I'm assuming that's like limitations, self-image, limiting beliefs, whatever it may be. Can you, if say I'm someone that you could help and I'm coming to you for some support, I'm assuming it's business, personal life, mindset, etc. How do you help people? How do you work with people?
It was really cool. I actually am running a group program at the moment called Risk Taker, which is really cool. It's just a 3-week course, but it's about being able to take bold action in your life, really. So what was so cool is one of the ladies in that group program was like, what I love about your stuff is it's so transferable. So for me, it's like, what I teach you should be able to almost be applied to like almost everything, because I really like to look at the foundations. So I'm really big on self-confidence. I'm obviously really big on limiting beliefs, and I'm really big on, again, like I just said, taking bold action and creating the life that you actually want. Creating the life by design, such a common, phrase, but absolutely. So for me, in terms of business, I'm a lot more about the energetic side. I'm a lot more about the frequency of money and the frequency. Like, I don't teach people strategy, if that makes sense. It's not that I'm not good at strategy, and it's not that I can't help with strategy if they don't have questions, but I'm not about to sit with you and give you like 48 spreadsheets and lead gen ideas and this and that. Like, I want to know, because the people that come into my world, they're attracted to me because they see themselves in me. They're like, oh, okay, she has this spark, she has this fire, she has this energy. Part of me wants to know how to unlock my own. So if I could put a label on it and be like, I help women unlock their true potential.
Something I'm not done with that question.
Okay.
That topic's too big to not go into a bit more. Something that you've done so fucking well, and I don't even know how you're doing it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're doing it. You've created like a movement for you. Like, people love you. Like, I watch your posts all the time. I love it. I engage with them. They're awesome. I sent your one of your quote photos to my VA and I said, hey, can we do things like this? Like, she's killing it. How have you done it? Like, it's amazing. It's inspiring as shit from a fellow creator, fellow coach. It's like, it's fucking epic.
Thank you.
How, I don't know if you've thought about this or you know why, but like, how have you done it?
I haven't thought about it until people have asked me.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, people don't like my answer usually, because I'm like, I just follow my heart. So for me, I showed up on Instagram for, I'm not even joking, we worked it out, nearly 4 years straight, every single day, and I did not sell one thing.
Cool.
So from a business perspective, so even from a business perspective, all I gave people was value. I showed up because for me at the time, my Instagram was originally created on helping people heal their body image. And so, you know, I talked a lot about body positivity, and at the time I had really bad cystic acne. Yeah. So for me, I was someone that I jumped on social media, even though it scared me shitless. I didn't have a filter on, and I just got on there no matter what my skin looked like. And that gave people safety. Yeah. They felt safe so they felt like they know me. And a lot of my clients, they do know me. Now they've been in my world and my social media life for the last nearly going on 5 years. So for me, I make a really big deal to connect with my audience, and I have for a very long time. I have shown up, like I say, almost every day. So people know what they get with me. They see me and they feel like that there's a relationship with me. And so I think I didn't even realize how big it was until people started to ask me how.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I just do.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because I'm like, I wish I had more answers for you.
Your answer was beautiful. Vulnerability, being authentic, being consistent, adding value.
Yes,
there's
consistent.
Like literally 4 pillars right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and authenticity is huge. And I think what's so cool is, as you know, there's a very big movement at the moment with people seeing through social media. Yeah. You can see through people's shit now. You know, people used to fall for it, I think, a little bit more, but now you can feel people's energy, no matter if it's through a screen or not.
There's a quote from Gary Vee. Like, I've been on the Gary Vee train for like 5 years now. Yeah. And one ages ago, it's like, you can trick losers, but you'll never trick winners.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's more consciousness. People are seeing straight through it. So fucking absolutely agree. I would like to go back to that previous question. So you help people with their energetics. You help them step up. You help them in, I'm not sure, other areas. What are the biggest problems that you're seeing with your clients? And just before we move forward, is it only women that you work with? Do you work with? Yep. So
yeah, I have men ask, but for me, just working with women feels good.
Yeah.
And I think if the right male came through, I'd be like, yep, cool. Yep. But it just hasn't kind of.
That's fine. You know your niche, girl. You know your market. So what's the problems that women are generally coming to you for? And maybe it's the mirror question, because they might think it's this, but it's actually something else, which is probably what you'll find. So what's kind of the surface level problem that people are coming to you for most of the time, but what's the kind of root cause of it?
Surface level problem is the fear of being seen. And we actually spoke about this before we even jumped on. Fear of being seen, fear of stepping into themselves. And a lot of that actually usually comes down to their masculine energy.
Can you lean into that a bit more?
Yeah. So a lot of the women that I get, and it's so funny because it's something that I've moved through and had to be really conscious to move through. Yeah. I grew up, again, it's if you want to use the daddy issues as an example of like stepping into this hyper independence of like, I can do it all so no one can hurt me.
Yeah.
If I do it all and I do it all, then I'm gonna be financially independent. I'm gonna close all my walls up. Nobody's gonna be able to get close enough to touch me. Like you can be in my space, but you're never gonna be able to see the real me. So often that's usually what I find is the block of women. You know, you can get just enough, but the fear of being vulnerable is usually what holds them back. But what people don't understand is that's your superpower.
That's strength.
And exactly right. And it's so funny how we've often, you know, vulnerability is associated with weakness. And especially for men. I feel like for men, that's, you know, a whole nother topic that we could talk about for days, right? So yeah, for most of the women that come through, they're scared to step into their power because they're afraid to be seen. But it's usually because they've had to do all the things all the time. So they get in and get it done and they care about everybody else, but they've never been able to flip the script and go, hey, I can care about myself. So stepping up, so making the money that they want, creating the life that they want, creating the business that they want is never been of top priority. So they never put themselves on top.
What would you say to those? What's some actionable things women can do right now? So there's a wounded woman listening to this, a wounded feminine who's using her masculine to protect herself because dad hurt her, ex-boyfriends hurt her, society's hurt her, social media's hurt her, and she's got all these walls of protection that's stopping her from stepping into her power, or maybe she's overcompensating and she's not opening up a little bit, open up at all. What can they do right now to start moving that needle?
I actually ask you to write a forgiveness letter to yourself.
Oh, I love that.
That's a painful one, and one that took me, I was avoidant to it for such a long time.
That's powerful.
So for me, it was like, hey, it's okay for what happened, X, Y, and Z. So bang on, you hit the nail on the head, whether it's your dad hurt you, your mum hurt you, whether it was, you know, an ex-boyfriend, you got cheated on, whatever. Because often we carry that guilt and shame and not consistently blame ourselves. So the forgiveness part is really important because we often do things as humans when we're hurt or feel unsafe that aren't desirable. Whether we go crazy ex-girlfriend, whether we do some some things that maybe aren't desirable that we do regret or whatever that looks like. And I find for women that comes up a lot. Yeah. So the forgiveness piece is always first. And then it's looking at, and I hate using self-care because I think like, you know, self-care days and things are kind of like, you know, romanticized a little bit, but looking at how you can romanticize your current life. Yeah. So that's going to be tapping into the senses. Yeah. Okay. So like, and as cliche as it sounds, especially if you're not into like, you know, meditation and things like that, this can look like eating a meal and like smelling the meal and eating the meal and tapping into like, this tastes so fucking good. What that does is allow you to get in touch with your body. Yeah. When you get into touch with your body, you get in touch with your intuition, and that is a very feminine state to be in. And it's a very healing state to be in because you can witness yourself in the state that you need to, and you usually then know what you need. And so I find like for me, I do a lot on my own, and that's something that even though I'm in a relationship, I love. So I still take myself on coffee dates. I actually still go to the movies by myself. I do a lot on my own because I have been through a process of putting myself on top, and that's allowed me to actually do all the things that I needed to do because I was like, hey, I'm actually a priority in my life. And when we allow ourselves to be a priority, we prove and we create evidence that we respect ourselves. And when there's a lack of self-respect, we don't put ourselves on top.
Having so many light bulbs with you. This is amazing.
Yeah.
She's 23, by the way. If you didn't hear that at the start. Holy shit. Okay, there's a couple more topics I really want to go into with you. Let's go money. You've mentioned money. You're doing really well with your finances, and it's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
What's let's go same thing. What's kind of generally the surface problem? Like people say, I don't have enough money. I want to make more money. I'm shit with money, whatever. And then what are kind of the blockages or the root causes for people not making the money that they want to make?
Yeah. So if I can talk about this, anyone can move through it. I was someone that had the worst money mindset. Yeah. I could not even buy new socks and new undies when I needed them out of fear of spending money. Yeah. I was a hoarder. Yeah. I can't let it go. It's mine. I've worked hard for it. I've got to keep it. Yeah. So if I can move through it, anyone can move through it. The first thing that I would usually say is a scarcity piece. I don't have enough. People forget that money, and I truly believe money is a frequency.
Yeah, it's literally going through the air right now as we speak. Trillions of dollars.
And I didn't believe that. Yeah. Like, I get goosebumps when you said that because I'm like, oh, right. So I didn't, if someone said that to me 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, shut up. Yeah. You go to uni, you get a job, and that's that. You pay your bills and you get a house, and that's how it is. Yeah. So what I didn't realize was that when you have a scarce mindset around money, you're putting that out. Just like negative energy, you're saying I'm undeserving. That's too expensive. You're saying I can't afford it. Right? And usually you're saying I'm not worth it as well. What I didn't realize is how many people believe that they're not deserving of money. And the only time you ever believe that you're not deserving, or usually the only time that I see people don't make money, is because they put money's worth above their own.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
So the minute I started to make more money was the minute that I decided that I was worth it. Because I am worth more than any amount of dollar sign. Yeah. Right? And it's so funny that often people, and again, it's hard when you are in a position where money is stressful, because when money is stressful, everything's fucking stressful. Yeah. Like, it's hard. And I do definitely empathize with that. But when people, you know, value money before themselves, they start to behave in weird ways. Like, i.e., you can't even buy socks and undies like me. Yeah. Like, I was literally saying I'm not even worthy of things that are a necessity because money's more important and I need to hold on to that. Even though I had a job, even though I could have gone to Kmart, you know? So that's usually the biggest thing that I see is like people's fear. Yeah. And whether it's usually two ways. People either hoard money or they get rid of it the minute that they get it. Yeah. So whether it's shopping, so it's either one way or the other. I was the hoarder. And actually, if you're a money hoarder, I guarantee you've got clothes that you've had for like 5 years in your cupboard, and your car and your house are really dirty. Yeah. That's usually what comes up for people. Yeah. The way that people can move through that is usually working on their money mindset. So for me, that actually required getting a mentor, and also getting in rooms with people. So hearing people talk about money was a foreign concept to me. Yeah. I grew up in a household where you don't ask people what they earn. Yeah. Talking about money is wrong. You don't bring children into money conversations. Yeah. So that's literally what I thought. Yeah. Next minute, I'm in a business mentor asking me how much I've earned, you know, what money I've got in my savings, how much, and I'm like, and I didn't know what to say. Yeah. Full panic mode. Yeah. So what actually helped me was getting myself in rooms with people and normalizing and neutralizing conversations where people just talk about money. And it will always be uncomfortable at first. Yeah. People talking to me that they could make $5,000 in a month, originally I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. Are you kidding? Yeah. So really normalizing that, because the minute that you normalize it, more opportunities will open up for you, because again, you raise the glass ceiling. Yeah. Hey, if so-and-so can make $5,000 a month, maybe I can too. Yeah. And that's actually all it is. Yeah. And fucking wild. It's that we could talk about all day too.
Keep going. This is awesome.
And I think, and I didn't realize how I don't want to say easy, but I didn't realize how accessible and easy it was to create an income when you know how to create an income.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't, because I grew up in a family where it was like we struggled week to week.
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect to my family. They absolutely did what they could, and I'm forever grateful for that. But being in that position, you do grow up with this fear that like money rules the world. And so I grew up with this like projection on wealthy people.
Yeah.
And what's so funny is I have now people projecting on me now that I talk about money.
Yeah.
And I know people's view of me has changed. I've had so many people unfollow me. People have said things about me, people close to me and people far away from me. Yeah. And I think it's so funny. I'm like, hey, that's that coming full circle.
Yeah, it is.
And I accept that and I respect that because I used to be that person too.
Yeah. It's what the projection of you is, the perception of you is a projection of me. So if you've seen anger or guilt or just negative energy, that's some shit in you that you haven't worked through yet. So wow. There's three kind of big buckets that I kind of want to get done with our time remaining is mentorship as a whole. You've been invested into mentorship.
Yep.
I know for me, because I've come from lack of money and lack of I guess scarcity around money as well. I know like I was writing up this story. I'm running a webinar soon. You gotta like reflect on your stories. And I went to a Kerwin Rae event, if you know who Kerwin is. And he's an epic human being. Changed my life. Love you, Kerwin, if you're watching this. And I went down to his now at Scale event. So it's about $3,500 event, and we had like $2,000 left in the business. This is about 6 years ago, and we went down there and like it was amazing. The event was amazing, blew our mind. And it's kind of like you get all this information. It's like, where the fuck do I start? It's like
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, right? And then he has all these testimonials of people like 10x in their business, 20x in their business, killing it, expanding. And then it's like, and obviously does his upsell to his mastermind. And we're like, me and my business partner were like, oh fuck, you keen to do it? Like, oh, we need it, man. We need this. It's like, we haven't got much money. How much is it? And we look at it, $44,000. So I was like, I get egg shits thinking about it. I was like, fuck, how do we do that? It's like, and it's we ended up doing it, and it changed my life. Thank you, Kerwin. It's like we went from 1 studio to 10 studios within 12 months.
Yes, I remember hearing your story because at the Kerwin event I went to, they told your story.
Yeah, it was awesome. And shout out, and Scott was the main piece of that. So that's absolutely Scott. I played my piece in that, but it's like he changed our life. But it was that I remember, I'm not sure if when you open things, you skip straight to the price. Like you go
always
straight to the bottom, how much it cost. And so, but anyways, I've had moments like that. And I remember I did Tony Robbins, my first event. It was Unleash the Power Within. It was $1,000. And that for when I was 18 was like more money than I've ever seen, right? So it's like having those little hurdles, but just deciding that I'm worth it and investing into me, I know was a huge hurdle for me. And it still shows up when I'm looking for mentors and stuff like that. So I'd love to know from you, because you're like, 19 years old, $10,000 on mentorship. You're still doing mentorship. You constantly are.
Yes, and it costs me far more now.
Yeah. What was that like for you to overcome that? And what would you say to people? Because I know like there would be people that would want to do your stuff, but money's holding them back.
Always.
So what would you say to people that are in that category right now? They want their life to move forward, but they're doing podcasts, which is a great start. That's where I started. But when you pay for shit, you pay attention. When you value stuff and you put your money where your mouth is and skin is in the game, it's so different.
100%.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so for me, it was weird. That first initial $10,000, like from someone that came as a money hoarder, and that was all the money. So I'd had that full-time job as a PT, and that was all I had. Yeah. I actually think I had a little bit less than that. So they let me put a down payment and then I paid the rest off. Yeah. And I didn't tell my mum originally because I know she would have been like, what the fuck, Chloe? But there was something that when he was talking, and again, maybe it was his sales tactics or I don't know, but it was a guy in Brisbane, and he saw me, if that made sense. Yeah. I had people that, like I said, talking about the too loud piece. She's too loud, she's too much, whatever. But he was like, you've got something here with an audience, and I think that we can help you. And I don't know what flicked in me that day, but that is and I get goosebumps again saying it, that was a very memorable change in my journey. Because exactly as you said, when you've got skin in the game, you are not going to let yourself not succeed. I had never seen $10,000 in my savings was ridiculous at the time. I couldn't believe I had that much. I thought I was rich. This is amazing. Yeah, woohoo. 5 figures, let's go. But yeah, it was wild. And so doing that, like watching that unpack and unfold for me, I was like, oh, I can see the value in it now. But I think also meeting yourself where you're at. That was and I always say people need to meet their edges first. But as you just said, sometimes it does need to be a free podcast first.
Yeah.
If you're a uni student, no one's expecting you to spend 30 grand on a mentor, but maybe go and spend $30 on a book. Because that $30 might be a stretch for you. You're like, oh fuck, I've got to read this whole book now. You know, like She's a Badass at Making Money or all those types of books. They're great to start with, right? And then it might look like a $500 course, and that might be like, fuck, that's activating me. And that's exactly what happened for me. It was 10 grand, but then even moved forward, like you say, when you're looking for things, like I pay 30 grand for my mentor per 12 weeks, right? And so I have paid and locked in the entire of 2023. But what's so funny is like, that's 120 grand worth of mentorship in a year. That's fucked up. And then but then I went to invest in a mastermind that was 16 grand and that activated me. And I was like, oh, this is a new edge now. But because I got comfortable and I knew I needed the mentorship, so that was safe for me. But I was like, okay, I need to meet a new edge now. And so that was really interesting. And I think, people, it's like, remember that people get so panicky when they're like, I can't afford it. I can't pay for this, whatever. No one's forcing you to invest in personal development. And it really gets to be that simple. You either want it or you don't. But one thing that I just always love to really put in perspective is if you're spending hundreds of dollars on the weekend on cocktails, if you buy a new outfit every time you go out with the boys.
Listen to this.
Yeah, if you gamble on the weekends, that's fine. But don't turn around and say things are too expensive.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And I said that from when I charged $35 a week for PT. If you can't even fork out $35, I guarantee you that's KFC, that's an Uber to and from the city, and a couple of bevs. There you go. Boom. There's a $300. You know? So I think it's putting into perspective what you prioritize. And you can't get angry at people for prioritizing their personal development and spending money on that if that's what they choose to spend their money on.
Any books that you would recommend at the start? Like you mentioned, You're a Badass at Making Money. I do forget the author of that.
So do I. It's a lady. I can't think either. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is another one that really put things into perspective for me. Because
when I read that, I was like,
oh.
The Matrix. I'm out of the Matrix.
Me too. I was like, what do you mean? That like, and that again, I loved the personal reflection on that and like seeing the both sides and the comparison. I love that. I'm actually, to be fair, not too big on, I love like trashy romance books. I don't do a lot of personal development books.
You love my partner loves fantasy books.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's super weird. Like I could sit down for hours and read something and then it's like, oh my God. What's the Tony Robbins one? One of the first ones. Is it Unbreakable? Unshakable.
There's Unleash the Giant Within. That's his book. Then there's Unleash the Power Within is his event. I've got like 2 or 3 of his books up there, but I forget which one.
There's one of them. I think it's Unbreakable, Unshakable, something like that. That's great. The Subtle Art of Investing is another really good one as well. Opened my mind to what that could look like in the future. I don't do any of that yet. It's not really my forte, not something that interests me. But I think, again, opening yourself up to conversations of what could be for you is huge.
Beautiful.
And YouTube's another one that I just love. YouTube.
Any podcast recommendations? Obviously, Corey Boutwell.
Oh, yeah, Corey Boutwell podcast. Lewis Huxtep. Who else?
Any that you personally listen to?
I just love Georgie Stevenson. She's actually a good friend of mine. Her Rise and Conquer podcast hits and lands really well with the girls, especially if you're like into manifesting and like kind of all that energetic stuff. My mentor, Jessie Williams, she has a podcast as well, which is amazing. Awesome. Again, I listen to a lot of females.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it, girl. That's most of my audience is female, so that's so good. I'm sure you're landing a lot with them. I'd like to know habits and practices that you do consistently to, I guess, because obviously you see the social media side, or for people that don't know you personally, they'll see your social media and some people are like, oh, she's lucky. It's just who she is. She's probably got rich parents. Whatever the ego comes up with, right?
Yeah.
But obviously you've worked at everything that you've got and you continue to, right? It's kind of like people say this about Tony Robbins with his events. They'll go to an event and then they'll come and complain to him 6 months later. It didn't last. It's like, well, if you stop brushing your teeth get fucking dirty.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
You got to keep going with it, right? So what do you do consistently, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly, whatever it may be, to keep you on track personally and professionally as well?
So I love this because we do, my partner and I, as well as my girlfriends and I, we do like, I would say like probably quarterly goal setting sessions, which is really cool. Awesome. So I break my year up into quarters. I'll do like a personal and then a financial and then a business. So like the financial is personal, like you guys kind of goes into one. And then that's really cool because like I think it's a bit more, it's fun with your friends because it's like, oh, you know, we get to talk about all the things we want to do. And that just puts things on paper and you need to see them. You can have as many dreams as you want up in here, but if you're not putting them down and speaking them aloud, and that's what I find for most people. Say it out loud and shit starts to change because you have to show up then. But people just love to keep things close to their chest. So my partner and I do a lot of, you know, our relationship goals or things like that as well. The other thing that's really basic is I say all the time, you know, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So for me, as basic as it is, if I'm skipping the gym and not eating good, everything else crumbles. And I know that for a fact.
Respect.
So to be fair though, it's not always perfect. I was in the gym literally yesterday, and I actually was in hospital sick, unwell a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not fully back to where I'm at. And I quit 3 seconds before the buzzer went off, and one of the trainers looked at me and goes, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I was like, oh,
fuck you.
That burns. Literally, I was like, oh, that burns.
Right.
But yeah, so for me, like I use the example of like, you go to a gym class, right? And you're on the assault bike and it says 12 calories, but you just do 10.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it starts.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about where can I hold myself to a standard in every single area of my life. And I know that digs in for females because especially as females, oh my God, your standards are so high.
Yeah.
Is one thing that women always get. Yeah, fuck yeah, they should be higher.
Yeah.
Is what I say. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, my friendships and my relationship is held to a very high standard. Yeah. The way that I present myself, the way that the things that go in my body for my health are at a high standard now. Yeah. The way that I show up in the gym is like I said, I'm doing the 12 calories. I'm doing fucking 13 calories, not 12. Yeah. So it's actually the basic stuff. And this is like exactly like you said, that's where people slip.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, but I did all the things that someone said to do in my business. Yeah, but like how clean's your car?
Yeah.
And how are you showing up for your family?
Yeah.
And when's the last time you told your partner that you appreciated them?
Yeah.
It's things like that. So for me, it's like, okay, well, I need to be really conscious of the human I am that shows up every day. And if I'm honest, the rest just follows. Yeah. Because the standard's already high enough that, of course, the standard is reflected in my business and in my life.
This is amazing. I'm getting like a coaching session here. Amazing.
Woohoo!
Relationships, just with the time we've got remaining.
Yes.
I think the angle I'd like for you to tackle this on is kind of to a point that we spoke about earlier in the podcast, is that I don't know much about this area from this angle. That's why I would love your take on it, is women trying to balance the masculine and the feminine from, because you're kicking ass in business, but business generally is quite a masculine game. Your systems, processes, sales, money, outcomes, purpose, blah blah blah. But then feminine is very much let go, be present. It is like be present with the moment, flow. How do you balance that?
Oh my gosh, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I would love to say that I'm like perfect at it, but I'm absolutely not. This relationship that I'm in now has been the most healing for me. Absolutely. It's been beautiful, and it's healed a lot of things that I almost didn't even know really needed healing. So it's been fantastic. But for me, it caused a lot of, I wouldn't say we don't argue ever, but it caused a lot of tiffing in our relationship to begin with, right? And so I couldn't work it out why, but we were just butting heads because he's so masculine, but he is so integrated in both his feminine and his masculine, whereas I was full masculine. You asked me to be feminine, I couldn't tell you how. I thought feminine was like dressing in pink dresses. Like that's literally what I thought it was. And so for any female, especially that if you're in business or if you're a friggin' CEO at work, or you're just crushing it or doing whatever you're doing, you're a manager at work, whatever, when we step into that, it's about learning how to sway between both. Yeah. So for me, and whatever that looks like, it's just about learning to surrender. So as hard as it was, as I said, I'm the eldest of 6 kids as well. Yeah. So taking care of people and crushing all the things, it's just in my nature. Yeah. So it's small things like when he's like, where do you want to go for dinner? It's letting him choose where we go for dinner. Yeah. It's letting him drive. It's surrendering to the small things that also allow me to surrender into the relationship as a whole. Because I, like, honestly, at the beginning of our relationship, if he wanted to choose where to go for dinner, I was like, no, but you chose last time. Yeah. I get to choose this time. And if you had told me that I would be able to be in the position that I'm in now, I probably would have laughed because it was so hard. Yeah. And I'd be like, I'm also really competitive. Yeah. So I would butt hair. I'm like, oh, I'm doing better than you in this. And he's like, calm down. Yeah. But for me, it's just the energy. Like, I love it. So for me, what that looks like is making sure, like I actually spoke about self-care before, but it's allowing me to make sure that I'm still spending time on my own to be able to lean into that feminine. And the other advice that I got from a mentor that I had, which was fantastic, because she crushes it in business. She's got 4 multi-million-dollar businesses. She is got 3 kids. She is fucking crushing it. And I just said to her, how do you do it? And she said, I don't want to be the burden in my husband's day. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, we come in and we are the wrath of the feminine. We do come in sometimes and we're a tornado. Yeah. I need to feel, and you need to let me feel, and I'm overwhelmed. Yeah, you need to love me. And so what was really cool is, and originally I kind of got activated. My ego fled when she said that because I should be allowed to feel the way that I feel, right? And that's true. But for me, what that looked like was she was so right, because he wants to take care of me. He wants to provide for me. Do you know how fucking hard that is when you've got a wrath of a person coming in the front door? Yeah. Or every time that you go to see your partner, you're complaining about this or that. And I'm not necessarily saying I wouldn't call myself a bad girl, girlfriend at all. I would say I'm quite a good girlfriend, but there was still parts that there was probably things that I needed to tidy up. So for me, that looked like coming in and being the light of his day. Yeah. In a sense that I was like, hello, how are you? Love you, all the things. And in that allowed him to take more care of me. And when he took more care of me, I was able to surrender into that. So again, like I always say, I love the foundational shit because that's where it starts. It's the basic stuff. It's how can you surrender to letting him drive and let you cook him dinner. Him cook you dinner and do all those sorts of things. But then also asking him like what he needs from you. Yeah. Because that's another thing that I was really bad at as well. I couldn't have those conversations because it kind of made me uncomfortable. No, but I am enough. But it's like there's always room to improve. There's always room where you can compliment each other and ask each other what you need. So don't give up. It is a work in progress. That's all I have to say.
A question me and Georgia now do is how can I support you better or how can I love you better? And it's just like, like you said, ego, aren't I good enough the way I am? Isn't my love good, like who I am? But it's certainly helping out. Last question before you wrap it up is what's an area of your life that you're working through, growing in, or maybe struggling in a little bit that the world doesn't see?
Yeah. It's so funny. This is like so like literally fresh as of like yesterday from the mastermind I'm in. It's actually vulnerability. And what people would say is like, oh, you're so vulnerable. But there was a piece where when I started to get a little bit more traction on social media, and as you said, like I've got a bit of a cult-like following, which is epic. With that does come a little bit of backlash. With a confident personality, people think that they can poke you and it doesn't sting as much or something like that. And so what I noticed and what was reflected to me that it was like, as I've gone along and as I've grown and I've set more boundaries, and as you know, in business, you need to have boundaries. You can't be available to people 24/7. You can't give people freaking free coaching in the DMs and whatever. But as I closed that up, I almost closed it up a little bit too much. And what's so funny is yesterday after I had said, okay, like, I do need to put my heart on my sleeve a little bit more because that's how I've led my whole life. And that's why my people love me and that's how I lead my people. But when I had said that and when I'd committed to that was when I opened up social media and there were all those hate comments. And I was like, oh, there's the test. There it is. And I was like, okay, well, how are we gonna go about this? And so for me, it was about feeling that and being like, it's okay to let it sting. Because what would I say to my clients? I'm like, fucking feel it. You know, whereas I'm like, no, I'll be right. I'll get on with it. It doesn't even hurt that much. So for me, it's about like, okay, well, there's a piece where I do need to lean into vulnerability, but obviously like I'm not going to freaking entertain shit like that. Like I delete it, I block it, whatever. It doesn't matter. So for me, it's, I think, balancing the act between dancing between being a coach and being a CEO and showing up and being able to still be vulnerable while also protecting my own heart. Because I think, as you know, when you have an influence on social media, and I'm not saying mine is large, but you know, when you have a small slice of that, it is easy to almost like overshare and then people know everything. And so it's like finding a balance between that and
I've struggled with that in the past.
Yeah. And I think because again, like we want to, you know, and I know you're very similar. It's like you want to help everyone. I want to help you and I want to give to you. But sometimes I think what I've learned as well is like in regards to creating self-leadership and people that, you know, and inspiring people to help themselves also means that sometimes you need to let them help themselves, which means we don't need to give and give and give all the time.
Drag them to the water and let them drink.
Absolutely. So,
if people wanted to connect with you, either just to say thank you for the podcast or potentially work with you or just get inside your world, where's the best place to find you?
Instagram is just at Chloe Bromwich. Come say hey. I actually am one of those people that like doesn't have a website, doesn't do any of those things. I'm like just slide into my DMs. Even if it's like one-on-one coaching, I always just take DM, slide in, send me a message, come say hey. I'm all about it. Make sure you tag us if you love the episode as well. But yeah, come say hey.
This has been amazing. I've gotten so much value. You've given me a lot of light bulbs, a lot of areas of my life that I want to get better at and grow on. And you're going to change the world. You already are.
Thank you.
But you've got big things ahead of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Woohoo!